Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and I want to welcome Steve and Schnee to the channel. Tonight we are looking at those Arista albums from the Kinks. So we're going 1977 through 1984. We want to hear from you in the chat. Let's get started. This will be great.
Grant is changing the world one track at a time on Grant's Rock Warehouse.
Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and tonight, hey, we're going back in time. We're going back to the 70s, and we're going to talk the Kinks. Now, we're not talking 60s Kinks.
Mm-hmm.
We're not talking early 70s Kinks. We're not talking RCA. We're not talking Reprise. We're talking the Arista Years in the catalog of the Kinks. So we're talking 1977 to 1984. So that would be the first album that they got signed to Arista would be Sleepwalker. And their final album in 1984 is Word of Mouth. So we're just going to look at these records. We'll probably rank them at the end because we're trying to turn you on to this certain era of the Kinks, because who's really talking about the Arista Years?
I know.
If we, Steve, if we really wanted to shock people, we could have talked about those RCA albums because no one's talking about those. But we're talking about the a little bit more commercial, a little bit more accessible Arista Years. So I want to welcome Steve and Schnee to the show. Steve,
thank you for having me, Grant.
how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
It's nice to see you. It's always
Nice
fun
to
to talk music.
Yes, which we did for an hour before
we hit record. Well, we did hit record. We've recorded a lot already.
Oh, but I think the RCA stuff has been reevaluated in the last 5-6 years. I think people are coming around to that, and I know this is controversial, and this might make me an honorary member of the Contrarians. But my favorite period of the Kinks is the Arista Years. That is, sure, I'd love one of my favorite songs ever is Waterloo Sunset. And that's, of course, reaching back to the 60s. I mean, they had such great music in the 60s, such wickedly wild and odd albums, the RCA period. But when they hit the Arista period, I think for some reason, and it's not because of the era, because as you know, I've been a music fan all my life, and I followed, I was especially into the whole new wave thing and punk and power pop and all that kind of stuff beginning in 77, 78, or actually early 78. I don't like these records because they're influenced by that era. I like these albums because I think the songs were more direct. Some call these albums power pop. Some call them, I call it stadium rock.
I call it arena rock.
Yeah. So these albums, unlike the previous albums, you could put the headphones on and you could imagine this huge stage with every member of the Kinks 20, 30 feet apart, surrounded by 100,000 people, playing these great, great songs. This is probably the most, what's the word I want to use? The most extroverted period of the Kinks' career. It wasn't really internal. It was more like just playing out to the people. They were giving the people what they want, to quote one of their album titles.
Yeah.
And yes, and it was probably their most commercial period.
Yeah, to some degree. I think it was probably, obviously it's going to be their most successful period.
Yeah.
They were selling records here in the States and virtually getting no recognition in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were supposed to do a remix of Give the People What They Want. They were going to remix it for the UK market. But somehow
interesting.
It fell through. They were also going to do like a video for the whole record. That fell through. So I don't know. So we're just going to talk about these records, and I'm jumping all around. Of course, we're on a tangent already.
Yeah.
So let's start out with...
we're always on tangents.
We're always on tangents. So everyone bear with us because,
I mean, somewhere in this conversation we're going to mention Flock of Seagulls. Oops, I just did.
You always mention that.
I know, I love them.
I know, I love it too. But anyway, so 1977, Sleepwalker. First album on Arista. They just came off their, they wrapped up their career, or their, what do you want to call it, their I guess it'd be part of their career with RCA. Sleepwalker was the first one. It came out February 1977. And when you listen to this, I don't know if it's like I kind of look at it as a breath of fresh air of something familiar because you look at that late 60s period. Well, if you look at You Really Got Me, you look
Hmm.
at Day in, you know, Day in the Night, all give me another 60s track, rocker,
Lola.
Lola. It's reminiscent of that era where it's good rock and roll, more accessible. How do I want to put it? Just more straightforward rock and roll as opposed to all that artistic, weird, showy stuff they were doing with RCA. Even
Yeah,
though I know
Schoolboys in
that's
Disgrace, Muswell Hillbillies.
Muswell Hillbillies is all right, but it's those other records I really can't get into. So when I look at Sleepwalker and when I play it, it's like a breath of fresh air is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree with that. I think that what they did on this album, I think it's a great transition album. They're kind of like, they're wearing their, British jackets, and then they're shaking off the odd feelings from, or I mean, the odd sounds and the odd inclinations from their previous RCA period, which I still really enjoy. I'm not dissing that stuff at all, but they're shaking off their jackets, and then they're saying, let's get down to basics. Let's write great pops. Jukebox music is a prime example on this album. It's bingo, in your face, great pop rock, you
you know
know?
what I kind of look at it as is if you went kink size, kind of kinks, kinkdom,
Hmm.
kink controversy, and you kind of skip, well, face to face. Let's put face to face still in there.
Okay.
And then you skip something else by the Kinks and Village Green and
Hmm.
Arthur and maybe jump to Lola. I think include Lola. It seems like a progression because we know
Uh-huh.
that later 60s stuff, which I think is their best stuff ever. Arthur,
Hmm.
Village
Hmm.
Green,
Hmm.
something else, face to
Hmm.
face. Those are my favorites. Okay.
Hmm.
But Lola, I think's a good, like if you went to Lola and then, well, you could leave Percy in there. Muswell Hillbillies and then leave everybody in showbiz, preservation and all that and jump right to Sleepwalker. I think it would be a pretty easy transition for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm glad those other albums exist.
Right.
Yeah, I totally agree that it's kind of a return to form. I don't think that you should cut those albums out because that was during a period where they were just doing what the heck they wanted, and it was not very commercial. In fact, sometimes I remember back, we grew up. I mean, either me or my brother had Kink Chronicles and maybe another couple albums. And I remember my brother getting like Muswell Hillbillies, and I think he was getting into that and Schoolboys into Disgrace and stuff. And they were just at that point, this is probably 79 or whatever. That was just too weird for me. Now, Sleepwalker, I remember hearing jukebox music, the title track on FM radio, and thinking like, well, that's how I remember the Kinks sounding, not Muswell Hillbillies. Again, not
Mhm.
dissing this stuff. When I saying I prefer a certain period, that's just like saying, I prefer Abbey Road, but that doesn't mean that Sergeant Pepper sucks or anything like that. It's just you just have a personal preference. But yeah, I mean, Stormy Day's a nice song, and Life on the Road starts off the album, and I think that's just the great transition. It starts off the album kind of soft a little bit, acoustic, then it kicks right into the rock that you're going to hear for the next several albums. You
Mhm.
know,
And I think on these records, it's like almost like Dave comes into his own as a guitar player too, because
yes,
he's so strong. His tone is great. It's not, that old 60s type of sound. I mean, it
yeah,
sounds modern,
hmm
1970s. He's almost like a guitar
hmm
hero as far as I'm concerned.
hmm
Very tasteful. I really think he comes into his own during this period.
hmm
But don't get me wrong. There's beautiful, great stuff like on Something Else and
yeah,
all those
yeah,
Dave tracks from back in the day.
hmm
I'm not taking anything away from it,
hmm
but it just seems like the 70s is where, as a band, they seem to really have come together.
yeah, and yeah. I
Some,
believe that, and
yeah.
I believe there might have been maybe a little more confidence in Dave, and
Hmm.
I'm sure he had a lot of, but remember, I mean, I don't remember what years, but during this period that we're going to talk about, that's when Dave Davies was releasing his solo albums that were doing
Hmm.
pretty well.
Yeah, which are all worth having, I'd
Yeah.
say.
So it's just a great, I mean, they just seemed rejuvenated. I mean, they were already, what, 13 years into their career. What was their first album? 64,
Yeah.
65, somewhere
Hmm.
in there. And, here they had 12 years to build up to this point. Maybe in their minds, they weren't doing anything different. But to us, there was just a clarity with Sleepwalker. And I think that clarity, it just opened up even more throughout the next 7 years or so.
Yeah. Well, I was just curious, are there any like particular key tracks on this record for
Well,
you? I
jukebox
mean,
music, I think, is a very important track for them because of the fact that I believe that song more than anything else on this album, that and the title track, let's say,
mm,
showed the direction that they were going to head in. But I mentioned a few minutes ago, Stormy Day is just a nice, gentle track, nice, great song. I don't think there's any stinkers on the album whatsoever.
I don't think so either. There are other records that I'm not quite as into. This one I think is one of the best of the Arista 70s output, one of the best ones, or it's one
Hmm.
of the best ones of the whole Arista catalog. It sounds
Yeah.
like when you listen to this record, they just seem charged, they're back, they're in a good place,
Yes.
and they've got the tracks, they've got the songs, and everything's firing on all cylinders. For me, Sleepwalkers, of course, this title track, Dave on that is absolutely killer.
Hmm.
It still shows their humor. It's
Hmm.
just, they rock on it. And jukebox music, this used to get a lot of play back in the day.
Hmm.
I don't know if it does now, but it's a great song. It's fun. See, that's what I like about this album. It's kind of uplifting. Now,
Hmm.
there's an album later in the catalog that we're going to talk about that I find very uplifting. But I think this is a good record. I would, if someone's getting into this era of the Kinks, I could totally, without a doubt, say if you see Sleepwalker out in the bins and you like physical media, by all means take the chance and get it. If you're not familiar
Hmm.
with this era, but
Hmm.
Life on the Road's great. Mr. Big Man, Full Moon. I love this record. So,
Hmm. So let's
um,
go into Misfits from 78.
all right. So that came out May of '78. This one's a bit different. This one, when I look at it, it seems to be much more. It's not quite like Sleepwalker, but if I'm going to compare it to maybe something in the past, I'm going to compare it to more to that. When Ray was writing more of those songs about much more. How do I want to put it? It is still rock oriented, but I think the
Hmm.
lyrical content's a bit different. This is almost like a loose concept album to some degree. Don't
Hmm.
you think? I mean,
Yeah.
it's alienation, identity, struggle of aging rock stars, things like that. And the thing is that Ray, like he used to like in the late 60s, is writing from much more of kind of a personal perspective, I think.
Right. But
But
the
I don't
music is
think
open. The
the
music's big and
music's
open.
open. Right.
It's like, come, 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 come. Like I said, that's what I'm talking about. The extroverted. It's maybe not so much lyrically, but musically, it's big and bold and inviting.
Hmm. I mean, this one wasn't one of my. This is really considered when you look at the old reviews. This
Hmm.
record's really highly thought of with a
Hmm.
lot of critics because it does the way Ray is writing songs is much like way Ray used to write songs in the late 60s.
Hmm.
And evidently the critics like that. I don't know. What is there anything about this record that you want to point out or notable songs? What
Rock and roll fantasy is fantastic.
fantastic.
I mean, I look at this album differently. I look at it as a continuation of not,
Sleepwalker?
yeah, of Sleepwalker, but not like, hey, a carbon copy of it. I consider it, they freed those chains, they shook those jackets, and now they're moving ahead. Okay, we've done Sleepwalker. We made our step back into, you know, they're getting more attention than they had in the recent past. So I think that there's a confidence, and with that confidence, I believe there's also that sense of, we're going to do it, you know, mold our sound. We're being influenced by all this new wave stuff that's going on around us,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not going to distract us from what made us great in the beginning, which is a lot of those lyrics. And I think this is just as strong as Sleepwalker, but in a very different way. Again, Sleepwalker was a perfect bridge between the the Schoolboys, Muswell Hillbillies, all that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
was a great link to the new Kinks. Then I think that Misfits is a great bridge into what we now call arena rock, or as you call it, stadium rock.
Mm-hmm. Well, I totally agree. I think this is a similar album to Sleepwalker, only, it's much more, it's, how do I want to put it? There's more emotional depth to it
Mm-hmm.
when I hear it. It still has the same energy,
Yeah.
they're still riding high from that. I don't think that some of the tracks are quite as accessible as what
Mm-hmm.
had come on Sleepwalker,
Mm-hmm.
which is fine.
Yeah.
It just seems like it's much more of an artistic record
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to
Mm-hmm.
Sleepwalker has a lot of accessible track. It's just a good feeling record.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to take anything away from this record. It's not one that I turn to as much because in my old age, I kind of like stuff that really lifts
Yeah.
me up. And not to say that this does it, but it's just a little bit different. This is really a record to listen to when I hear it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. This is not what they were about to record, which is albums you just put on when you're having a party and people come over and they just want to hear great music. Misfits is an album that you need to sit down and give it a proper listen. Not to say that the next couple albums aren't that way, but Misfits is more of that kind of album. Like, pay
Mhm.
attention.
Yeah, when like the next, yeah. So when we talk about Low Budget, which is the next record, this was a
Mm-hmm.
big record. Came
Oh.
out in 1979.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but did this do anything in the UK? Did they have any success with this? Do you know?
See, that's a weird thing because the Americans embrace the Kinks as just like one of the most British bands ever. Gosh, if you want to know about British life, listen to Ray Davies, however you want to pronounce it. I pronounced it Ray Davies, by the way, for decades
Yeah, I've
until
heard
I was
that.
told it was Ray Davis. And then I hear that he pronounced it Ray Davies and Dave pronounces it Dave Davis. I think Mazzy said that or something, but it's confusing. So let's just call him Ray and Dave.
Yeah, keep it simple.
Yeah. But with Ray, I think that people just thought he's the quintessential British singer-songwriter. But did the Brits look at it that way? Was Low Budget a step in the American rock direction? To me, it doesn't sound like American rock. It still sounds like British rock, but to the British, it may have sounded like American rock. You've got things like Attitude, Catch Me Now I'm Falling, which, just that, this is Captain America calling, just that part there is like, oh my God, that's just,
Hooky, great production.
incredible.
But think about it, the songwriting, it's a lot of this stuff. Yeah, we know we're talking low budget. So if you look at a lot of the tracks on here, we are talking. It's almost like another loose concept album.
Mm-hmm.
Low budget, talking about gas prices. Catch Me Now
Mm-hmm.
I'm Falling. It's a lot of social commentary, which I guess it could be a loose concept album. It kind of seems like it is, which isn't like anything in the early 60s. But, if you look at You Really Got Me, you
Mm-hmm.
look at all those singles, great singles. This is when I listen to these songs, Catch Me Down Falling, Wish I Could Fly Like Superman, it's really not that far off from that 60s stuff. It just
Mm-hmm.
sounds like it's done in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not real. How do I want to? It's just not so introspective like the other stuff. It's just a little bit more lighthearted. This is a really good feeling record. you know.
Absolutely.
Even but even though it's called low budget and they are bitching about the price of gas, they're talking about stress about modern life on the song Pressure. I mean, but still it's the lyrical content is kind of the opposite of the way it sounds.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
And the thing I think that made Ray stand out even more so, I'm not saying he's better or worse, but that made him stand out from Pete Townsend, Jagger Richards, McCartney, anybody like that, is the fact that Ray seemed to be coming from the viewpoint of the everyman.
mhm.
He's not, he's could have had millions in his bank. He could have had hundreds in his bank. I don't know. But he doesn't have that I'm a lofty rock singer. Now, maybe in real life, maybe he's arrogant. I don't know. But lyrically, he's not acting like, hey, oh, I see you peasants and, dealing with all this stuff. He sounds like he's dealing with all this stuff. This album is also a very forceful album vocally, too, which adds to that stadium rock, American rock thing where, instead of saying, catch me now, he's going, catch me, he's like yelling a little bit. His voice is getting a little grabby.
Mhm.
And that right there, that projection adds a lot to this period of the band and really fascinating. And I love the fact, and I say love sarcastic, I love the fact that I Wish I Could Fly Like Superman was their disco song, right? And all the people were going, oh my God, it's their disco song. And then they go home and they play Miss You by the Stones, and they don't see the irony in what they just said. They love Miss You by the Stones, but they won't accept Wish I Could Fly Like Superman by the Kinks.
Well, I love the track, and the disco aspect doesn't bother me one
Nope.
bit because it's disco influence. I wouldn't say it's full
Right.
tilt disco.
Right.
It's a good, perfect combination of rock and roll
Mm-hmm.
and disco, but it doesn't bother me. And I think it's a great single. It was a big hit.
Yeah, it was a big hit. I like the extended mix too. I mean, I remember I have nothing against disco like a lot of people seem to do, which is, rather unfortunate. Because as I say, and this is just my little thing about disco now, is I love disco. Not every disco act or artist or song out there, but I love disco because it was created to make people feel good, to get up and dance. It's the only reason that disco existed. And of course, then it turned out to make money for labels. But the music was created to give people energy and excitement and joy. And so I'll gladly accept when any artist decides to go disco. And again, this doesn't, to me, it sounds like the Kinks, period. It's
So,
not like, Giorgio Moroder came in and, gave it a, proper,
ooh, could you imagine?
that would be kind of cool though. Maybe if he went back and remixed it.
Yeah, but
Um,
a lot of these bands in this time period were sprinkling a little bit of disco on top, so
oh,
it's not
absolutely.
unusual. But the way the Kinks handled it, it's perfect. The whole record, I will just go to say this is my favorite of the Arista records. I don't think there's a weak song on it.
Hmm.
It's catchy. I like the Kinks when they rock out.
Hmm.
You've really got me. They rock out.
Hmm. Hmm.
They're a rock band. They're rock. They are, you
Hmm.
kind of have to say, well, they're kind of back
Hmm.
to their roots to some degree, only in a 70s setting.
Hmm.
So this, I won't hold back. I think the whole record's great. And I love the production on here. Now, some of the records we're going to talk about after, I'm not so crazy about the production. But
Hmm.
this one checks I always say that, checks every box for me. This is a
Hmm.
great record. Highly recommend it. I love it as good as the reprise stuff. Well,
I do. This is my favorite period of the Kinks.
I know, but this isn't my favorite period. I
You
like
shouldn't say
Village
that out
Green and
loud.
all that. I love Village
No, I
Green.
know. I love that stuff too.
That stuff's perfect, perfect.
Yeah, but maybe I connected with this. I was 13, 14, 15 years old. And
Well,
so it left a bigger impression on me.
it's all where you come in at things a
Yeah.
lot. We've
Hmm.
had this is a tangent. We've had a lot of discussions about Rush. Now I know we're not talking Rush, but there are some similarities. Both have extraordinarily long careers that go over different generations.
Uh-huh.
And you can talk to like a younger person and they'll go, Oh yeah, I love power windows. I like
Yeah.
that 1980s
Hmm.
sound. You
Hmm.
got the 80s drums. It's very 80s sounding. And with some of the younger people that maybe have come in on that, that was their gateway drug. They think that's the way it's supposed to be. And then me, who came in 77, look at it and go, well, it doesn't sound like Hemispheres or A Farewell to
Right.
Kings.
Right. Right.
And now I can understand if this is where you really came in on it, and this was your era of the Kinks, it makes perfect sense. So
Yeah.
it's all where with these bands, it's really on how you come into them
Yeah.
and what part of your life.
I'd only heard kind of Kinks, and then maybe Lola versus what 8 Man or whatever that is. I hadn't heard Village Green by then, which I love. But two things. Number one, I will touch on disco one more time. We mentioned about most artists did disco.
Yeah.
I think a bad disco record was Disco Bells by Wayne Newton. Okay, we'll move on from there. That was a
Or
Christmas song.
Disco Duck.
Well, that's not a major artist doing
Rick
disco.
Dees is a major artist.
Well, the Disco Duck kind of blew chunks too. But my friend Mike always said about the Rolling Stones, he says a lot of people's favorite Rolling Stones album is the album they bought in high school or whatever.
Yeah.
And for me, that was Some Girls. Now, I'd heard the Stones before then, but Miss You, I heard that single and I go, I need to own that. So I bought the 12-inch single.
That's
And
what I
then,
bought.
yeah. And then when Some Girls came out, then either me or my brother bought Some Girls. We had the original version that was pulled because they were sued with all the people like Marilyn Monroe and
That's what
Lucille
I
Ball.
bought. I got a mobile fidelity pressing of it, and then I've got the original one that I bought back in the day with all the faces.
Yeah. See, and I compare this low budget to that. Yes, I'd already heard plenty of Kinks. I already had Waterloo Sunset as my favorite Kinks song up until this point. It still is my favorite Kinks song, but this is low budget is really when I really got into them. I mean, I enjoy Sleepwalkers, I enjoy Misfits, but low budget, ooh la la.
But I told that story before. Getting those 45s from my neighbor and saw the Beatle picture sleeves, and I looked at it like I'd never seen anything like it before because I lived in a Lawrence Welk household and a
Yeah,
Benny Goodman household.
right.
But when I saw that picture of the Beatles on the picture sleeve, She Loves You, I Want to Hold Your Hand.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm just a kid. I thought, who are these guys?
Yeah,
I've never seen anything like it. I was
yeah.
sheltered. I was playing Disneyland records.
I
So
still play
that,
Disneyland records and Lawrence Welk and Benny Goodman.
of course you do. But what I'm trying to say is I was so taken with that era, and then that's where I started out.
Yeah,
Beatles 62 to 66. So
yeah,
any other bands from that time period, I was going down that road. All the old
absolutely.
Kinks
Yeah.
stuff, whatever I could get. And this stuff I didn't really hear till later. So
Hmm.
my whole gateway is Village Green, you
Yeah,
know, first Kinks album. That's the stuff that I like.
yeah. That's
That's
the shizzle.
the shizzle for me.
Yeah,
So we all hear it differently, and that was where I started. I
yeah.
started from the beginning. You started. It's fine. It's all good.
Right.
Um,
But see, I'm older than you, which means I should have been listening to them in the 60s. But my
yeah, I don't know
parents
what
weren't
the hell
playing
you were
Kinks
doing.
records. I
No.
was hearing Kinks on the radio, but I wasn't buying albums by them, you know.
Mhm.
But I did have all the Jackson 5 and Osmond albums. So I was a kid, you
I
know.
was
It wasn't
familiar with
connecting with me
that.
the same way. What was that?
I should correct myself because I do mention that the Beatles were my gateway drug, but you remember honeycombs? You buy a box of honeycombs and they
Yeah, the
have the
Honeycombs
records.
Hideout.
You cut the records
Yeah.
out.
Uh-huh.
They had the Archies. They
Yep.
had the Jackson 5.
Yep.
Well, I used to play those. But
Yep.
that didn't hit me like the Beatles hit me. Well, you have to understand it's the Beatles.
Yeah.
And when I heard that as like, come to Jesus moment. And I've told about that. But I did listen to I heard the Jackson 5 and I heard, I don't know, maybe there's a Josie and the Pussycats one. I don't know. Maybe one.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Josie and the Pussycats.
So
You
I heard
know,
that stuff. The Osmonds. Wasn't there an Osmonds?
probably.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
Someone in the comments, you remember those Honeycomb Records. I don't know if there was just Honeycombs or there were other
There,
companies that put them out.
there
But
are other
list
companies.
it down in the
Kellogg's
comments. I
did
want
the
to know
monkeys, I think.
what you have. Yeah, the monkeys. I was into the monkeys
Can you make that cutting sound again, by the way?
like that.
No, louder and longer. You're not making it anymore. It was like a,
What was it? I actually heard the monkeys before that because I would go to my cousin's house. Now we're really on a tangent. And the first thing that I ever heard from the 60s was even before the Beatles was Last Train to Clarksville, I'm a Believer. And she actually gave them to me with the original picture sleeve. So I have those. And I
wow.
really heard those even for the Beatles. So, but what was it about the Beatles that really set me off? Oh, it was probably because it was the Beatles. And I didn't even know who the Beatles were, but it hit me without even knowing, like a lot of people, only me, it was 1975.
When the monkeys debuted in '66 on TV, I was 3, my brother was 4. And the show ran for 2 seasons. My parents told us, and I can't verify this because unfortunately my parents have passed, but this is the God honest truth. My parents told us that only 30 minutes a week could they set us down and know that we were not going to get into any trouble. We weren't going to break anything. We weren't going to fight, whatever. And that was when the monkeys was on. They would sit us down in front of the TV set when the monkeys was on, and we'd sit there transfixed. We didn't know Mike's name, so we called him Wool Hat. And I think a lot of people have called him Wool Hat or whatever.
Right.
Or maybe they didn't want me, the knucklehead, to get confused that Mike and my brother Mike. Am I going to think that my brother's Mike or the name? No. So maybe they called him Wool Hat for my sake, so I wouldn't.
I think everybody called him Wool Hat. That's what
Okay,
they
good.
called him originally, I think.
Yeah. So,
I mean, don't they
but
call him Wool Hat in the original first episode
do
before he
they?
even here? I think. Oh, Wool Hat or something.
Uh,
I think so.
yeah, but that's what we called him for years, even though we knew his name was Mike. I
But
don't
I
know.
watched him Saturday mornings in the late 60s is where I
Yeah,
saw.
we saw him when it was first airing
Mhm.
on NBC, I think.
And I remember we are bad on the tangent, but there was a song that I liked a lot that didn't air in the original series, but they
Hmm.
re-edited
Yes,
it,
and added new music.
added more modern tracks.
Yeah.
There was a track that I loved when I was a kid. Oh, what was the Chip Douglas? Oh shit, my
Was it
brain.
Mr. Engineer?
Yeah,
What
I love that
steam
song.
engine,
Steam Engine.
engine
It took me years to
99.
find it
Yeah,
because when I was buying them, all that stuff was out of print. Steam Engine was on that Rhino comp with the picture disc.
yeah.
And I found it and I bought it. I just went crazy. I said, that's the song. I haven't heard that since 1969
How come that's the song that I knew? Because I think that's something that we
because it's
loved.
great.
Yeah, Mr. Engineer.
I mean, it's wonderful.
Yeah, it is.
And it took me all those years to find it again
Hmm.
because I don't think it ever, well, wasn't released on anything. Not until
No, it
that
wasn't
Rhino
released.
comp.
Yeah, I think it was just one of those, left in the. I think they planned it to be on maybe changes or something like that, but an album after changes,
Mhm.
but it never appeared. But it's appeared on box sets and everything since then.
Right. But
Uh,
that Chip Douglas production or that magic, there's a magic when Chip Douglas was involved, and
yeah,
it is on that track as well.
yes, absolutely. I'm not a big fan of changes or like the later Monkeys after Peter and Mike left. Or I mean, even after Peter left, I mean, I liked things on the Monkeys Present and
Oh, I
things like
like
that.
all of it.
But some of that stuff was, but but even when you go back to great albums like Birds and the Bees, the King of Zor, he called for war,
But
and
which version do you like? Do you like the TV version or do you like the version on Birds Bees?
I prefer the version on Birds and Bees because that's the one that I've heard about 3,000 times, where I've only heard the other one about 17, 1,800 times.
Yeah. See, the one I was used to is the one that was on the TV show
Yeah.
back in the day. And then I was trying to find that version forever until they had the reissues. When you're a kid and you sit in front of the TV and they play them every Saturday,
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
sitting there glued to it. It becomes part of your DNA.
You know, it's a great
Steam
thing.
engine was part of me, Steve.
Yeah, Mr. Engineer. You know, the back even a couple years after the Monkees, we could still go to the ice cream man and he would have like, you know, for a quarter, you know, Monkees flip books where you'd flip it and you'd see them riding on motorcycles. You remember those flip books, right?
Yeah.
Like 20, 30 pages, just flip through and it looks like it's moving and stuff. We used to buy those but you know, it's funny. I looked down on my Word doc on my screen and I go, oh, that's right. We're talking about the Kinks.
I was just thinking that this was like the tangents of all tangents.
Yeah,
But I'm
exactly.
keeping it in here. I don't care because it's talking music.
Oh, you need to
Anyway,
keep it in.
oh yeah, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking the Kinks, by the way. And we are on the low budget album. And I think I was saying how wonderful I thought it was.
Yes, it's a great rock and introduced them to a whole new audience. This introduced them to an FM radio audience. They were no longer an AM radio band. They were an FM rock radio band. And this album opened up a lot of doors. I mean, with Sleepwalker and Misfit, they were FM radio, but they were just, you know, sprinkled in between stuff. This is when like half the album got played on FM radio because it was so crunchy, so rock, so powerful that, you know, I mean, especially Catch Me Now, even though I think it was a single. I don't remember hearing it on AM radio, but man, it just, when you're driving around in your friend's car or whatever, you know, my parents would not play those stations. But, you know, when you're with your friend's car and you're, you know, going to, you know, first class in high school or whatever, and then friggin' Catch Me Now I'm Falling is just cranking out of the radio, you're just going, holy for holy. So, yeah, it's a great record.
So, and after that, they put out a live album, and like there's like 7 tracks from low budget on it.
Yeah.
So I think that probably helped propel the popularity of this record too, because they get the live album, they hear all those tracks, and go, wow, maybe I ought to pick up that album as well. So, but that live album, I don't remember how far it was from the low budget tour.
Yeah.
That was a big record too.
It was, but I don't like live albums, so I never listened to it.
Yeah, but I remember in high school though, I was really surprised, like in high school, how popular that live album was.
Absolutely.
Kids were talking about it. It's like the Kinks. You wouldn't have thought that a band could have been this popular. At least I remember hearing, no one was really talking about the Stones so much, but man, the Kinks.
Yeah.
Everybody was talking about it in high school. I remember it was a big deal. So they were quite popular. It's like they're back. And, you know, it's a good live album for a live album. I mean, look at Low Budget. That album was meant to play live. The songwriting, the way
sounded live.
It sounded live. So when they did it live, that's what it was meant. It's not a studio piece. It's not Village Green, you know.
Right. It's a as I said, you said arena rock, stadium rock album. It sounds like it was recorded in front of a live audience that didn't exist. There was no live audience, but they're just playing hard on that. But the live albums, I just never got into. I think my brother bought it, but yeah, I'm just not a live albums guy. But I think that people were paying attention to the Kinks is because the Stones had always been with us. The Stones continued to have hits through the 70s, you know, Angie, you know.
Yeah, they'd never left social consciousness.
Right,
Here,
whereas the Kinks
had a
did for a
total
while.
rebirth.
Yeah. And I think that some people may have even thought of them as a new band.
Yeah.
You know.
I think some of the kids in high school thought that they were a new band, and I'd go, hate to burst your bubble, but they've been around for years.
Yeah, exactly.
10 years, 15 years at this point.
Yeah.
Roughly.
So give the people what they want. 1981 was the next album.
Go ahead. Keep going.
Continuing in the same direction. I think a little bit more intimacy on this album, and I don't mean that in a. It isn't played out as much. It isn't, you know, stadium rockish, but Around the Dial's great. Self-titled's great. Killer's Eyes, predictable. Destroyer was a fun song because it played with the Kinks' past, the history, with the licks and stuff like that. But probably the song that really, really hits you in the gut is Art Lover. Because it's sung from the perspective, and I don't want to use this word, it's the P file word. And it's a shocking song. Because if I use the word, then you might get a
Don't use
strike
the
on the
word.
video. Yeah, you might get
Don't
a
use the
strike on the video.
word.
Yeah.
Don't use it.
Yeah, I'm not gonna.
Don't.
No.
Don't. You can use pickle.
Okay. It's a pickle file. It's a song about a pickle file, or sung from that perspective.
Hmm.
And Ray was always a songwriter first. So if people thought it was coming from his perspective, no. I
Hmm.
think it's pretty darn obvious. Just even just reading the lyrics, you're going, yeah, Ray is not singing this from his own perspective. There's a certain amount of, whereas Ray had a fair amount of cynicism in his lyrics, this wasn't cynicism. This was sinister, and it's a very tough song to get through, but it's also, in that sense, it's haunting and it's touching, but in a completely different way. You know that what this guy is singing about is wrong, and he almost makes it sound like it's perfectly normal. But if you know the perspective that Ray's writing from, you know that it's far from acceptable. So that's my thoughts.
I think, yeah, what can I say after that? As far as the sound on this record, I'm a big production guy.
Yeah.
I don't think the production's as good as what came on Low Budget. We've
Hmm.
got some big drums on here, so
Hmm.
big that they kind of drive me crazy. Now, on Destroyer, I don't sense it as much. I think actually the way they produce that track, I'm pretty happy with. But when you're listening to, you know, give the people what they want, well, Around the Dial, let's talk about Around the Dial, which I think is great because you have all the special effects, the radio dial come
Yeah.
on. I
Yeah.
love that song. What a great way to open the record. But man, the drums are so mixed, so hot in the mix.
Hmm.
It's like arena rock on steroids, is how I look at it. Now,
Hmm.
could that be because we're in what did this come out in 81?
Yes.
August 81 in the US and January of 82 in the UK. It took a while for it to get released in the
Yeah.
UK. And I think it just plummeted. I don't think it did anything in the UK.
Yeah. Their attention was definitely the American market.
Yeah. Well, like I said, they wanted to remix this one for the UK market. I
Hmm.
don't think that arena rock, well, think about it. Styx didn't do well over in the UK.
Hmm.
Journey didn't do well in the UK.
Hmm.
Any of those arena rock acts, I don't know how Foreigner did. I think Foreigner still had some hits, but Journey didn't do anything over there. They didn't really
Hmm.
pay attention to Journey. So I can
Hmm.
probably see from their aspect, they're thinking, well, this type of sound might not, it's just not going to hit in the UK. But they gave up on the UK, market
Yeah.
a long
Yeah.
time ago. I think the songs are all here. I'm not crazy about the production.
Hmm.
Destroyer doesn't bother me, but it's continuation on from Low Budget. I don't think that the songs are quite as good as Low Budget. There's something
Hmm.
about Low Budget. And like I said, it's the production, it's the songs, it's just the overall feel. And this is just a little bit, could you say that it's a bit darker of a record? Do you think this is a darker of a more dark?
I could say it's darker.
Yeah. Is it
Um,
more dark?
Darker.
Darker?
Now, am I
No,
getting
it
this?
seems like there's a darker tone to this record
Yes.
where Low Budget, I feel that it's not. So maybe the band's in a different place in their career, or I don't know. We know that, was this the album that Mick left on?
Might be.
Yeah, because I know there's some turmoil. Well, we know the whole story with Dave and Mick. They never got along
Hmm.
from the early 60s. So it's amazing that Mick was a holdout all these years.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe was fed up with it. You've been touring forever, so I don't know. Who knows? I don't know what went on. I'm sure
Now,
it's in someone's book.
now is Destroyer? Am I getting that confused? Because Destroyer is the song that has like little.
Da-dun, da-dun,
Yeah. Okay.
da-dun-dun-dun.
Okay. Okay. So
Day and night.
Yeah, it is the one that sort of references or musically references their past.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay, I get that right.
But it's great. We used to play that when we were kids in bands because
Mhm.
it was very, yes, it harked back to the old Kinks, but it was
Yeah.
still very modern
Mhm.
and very refreshing.
Yeah.
It sounded like a modern record. And even
Yeah.
the kids, we were young kids, we were playing that in a band because it was a popular song.
Yeah.
The Kinks were hitting it out of the park during this era. There's no doubt.
Better
So
Things was a great song, and they buried that at the end of the album.
say that again. Sorry, I was coughing.
Okay. Better Things
Okay.
was a great song, and it's the very last track on the album.
Well,
You
a lot
know,
of stuff that's fine because look at sequencing. You want to start out strong.
mhm,
You want a strong side one, a beginning track. You want
mhm.
to end side one strong. You want to start side two strong and end side two strong. So you want the listener to want more. So
Yeah.
good. It should be where it is.
Yeah. But usually a popular track like that is usually higher up on that
Yeah.
side. It's usually track one, track two. And that's why I'm surprised because that is a great little pop song. But
So do you think you think this record could have been sequenced better?
no, 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 no. But it's just strange to put a song like that at the very end because usually most bands like to have more of an emotional ending, maybe something,
Like Day in a Life ends Pepper.
yeah. No, actually, dog whistles
But
and a
you know
run
what I
out
mean.
groove and
Right,
Sergeant
right,
Pepper,
right,
if you want
right.
to get technical.
Let's get technical. Don't forget on the American pressing, they snipped that off.
Oh, that's true. Okay.
All right.
But yeah, usually it's a I don't know why it just struck me as weird because it's a great pop song. Like it should have been a
Yeah.
huge hit.
Mhm.
And usually a song like that is buried more up in the track listing on either side. So,
Mhm.
but I mean it's not even a complaint. I love it when the album closes on a high note, you
I
know.
do too.
Yeah.
That's the way it should be.
Yes.
All right. So I don't like this one as much, but it's the production that kills it for me. It
Okay.
doesn't kill it,
Hmm.
but it kind of bothers me a little bit. And
Yeah.
no one, wherever I'm doing research or see, no one really mentions that.
Hmm.
But maybe it's because we're into the 80s and we're
Yeah.
starting to change.
Yeah.
It's not like 1986, which I think is really the real turning point where if everything got just totally out there
Yeah.
production wise.
Yeah.
So we're still not there because well, we're going to look at a couple more records and those records sound pretty I like the production of these. So the next
Hmm.
record we're going to look at a Kinks State of Confusion.
Well, here's something I wanted to bring up. Whereas low budget, some people thought like, oh well, low budget is a cheap knockoff of, or I mean, I'm sorry, give the people what they want
Yeah.
is a cheap knockoff of low budget, right? Well,
Yeah.
if you're looking at cheap knockoffs, just look at the covers of these two albums.
It's the same
Sid,
cover pretty much.
yeah, State of Confusion is more of a continuation of Give the People What They Want than anything else. But I have to say, I think it's still a great album. I mean, this is the album that has Come
Come
Dancing,
Dancing,
which
which
is
is a fun,
huge.
great. Come on.
Oh, God. Don't forget to
Beautiful, great
dance.
song.
Don't forget to dance. Another dance theme song.
Okay. I want to correct myself.
Okay.
This was the last record with Mick Avery
Okay.
because he's all on this record, but he would leave on the next record that we're going to talk about. So
Okay.
I just want
Okay.
to correct myself because people are going to drag me through the dirt if I
Right.
say bad words.
I think that this album is not as good as Give the People What They Want. I was going to say that it's probably, I mean, as a whole, whereas Come Dancing is just an incredible song. Don't Forget to Dance, incredible song. I think that the quality was down just a slight bit. And that's my feelings about this album. But it's not enough for me to say, oh, yeah, it sucked compared to Give the People. I think it's just not as good.
I think State of Confusion's wonderful though.
Oh, it
I
is.
think Come Dancing's wonderful, but when you do listen to Come Dancing, it really sticks out above all the rest of the tracks.
Yeah.
Where if you look at Low Budget, there's a lot more great tracks that all sit comfortably together.
Hmm.
Where here it just seems like, all right, it's Come Dancing's the track. Well, State of Confusion I really like. So you've
Come
got a
Dancing,
couple of
yeah.
songs that are really above the rest. And the other songs are fine, but you've got some really great songs that stick out.
Come Dancing is kind of like sitting at the kids' table at Thanksgiving. All the adults are sitting over there. Come Dancing is sitting at the kids' table, separate from everybody else. And whereas on low budget, everything is together. So I think that the fact that you just automatically, when you think of this album, that's the one song you think about, shows that it is the stronger of all the all the songs. It's separate from everything else. It's almost like they sandwiched it in because they thought, oh, this is great. Let's this is a great single. Let's just throw it on this album or whatever. And for some reason, still remains the highlight. It's a very strong album.
It's a strong album. It charted, it got number 11 here.
Yeah,
I don't think
right,
it did anything in the UK. It didn't
right.
even chart in the UK. But Come Dancing, what, got up to like number 6 or
Yeah.
I think it got up to number 6 in the Hot 100.
In
So
fact,
very successful. And that single's probably what promoted this album to that spot, number 12.
they titled their Arista Years compilation "Come Dancing"
Yeah.
or "Come Dancing with the Kinks."
And that's a great comp.
Yeah, it's a great comp. So if you don't have any of these, but you want to dive into this band's catalog, check that out. But we still have more to talk about. But
Yeah, we do.
yeah,
But I think the reviews, people were thinking that they get most. Let's look at Rolling Stone just for an example, because I love to throw Rolling Stone out there because Rolling Stone hates everything. They
yeah,
gave it a positive review. They said a strong affirm. I can't say it.
affirmation.
Affirmation of the Kinks' best qualities.
Mm.
So they liked it, which is unusual. You wouldn't think, but I think it's a solid. It's a solid pop record. Pop rock.
Yes, yeah. See, again,
With a couple of songs that stand out way above the rest.
I think I don't dislike any of the albums in the Arista years. Like I said, it's my favorite. But yeah, if we had to rank them, State of Confusion would not be my number 1 or 2 or 3.
Right, I agree. Totally agree.
Yeah.
100%. There's some good songs, Property, Heart of Gold. There are good songs on it.
Hmm.
But just the great songs really stand above it.
Hmm. And remember, some people may listen to these albums now and just go, "Yeah, this is horrible," or "Yeah, this is great." I think both. I think it's important when you rank albums or when you talk about stuff that you're very familiar with them. And I'm not putting Grant or myself above anyone else, but we lived these albums when they came out, and so when you hear it in 1983 or 1982 or 1981, you're hearing it from that perspective, and that perspective stays with you. So if an album now sounds dated, like if the keyboards on Come Dancing sounds dated 40 years later, 40 something years later, I'm not hearing it through those ears. I'm hearing it from the ears of my, 18-year-old self or 20-year-old self.
Except
So
those processed drums. It depends upon the artist and who
yeah,
it is. Now,
yes.
if you have those processed drums on Flock of Seagulls, I don't have a problem. You have those processed drums on the Thompson Twins, I
It
don't
fits
have
in
a
with the
problem.
landscape.
But if you have like processed drums on, well, like say if you're doing, I don't really hear that much processed drums here. We're not talking Genesis, Phil Collins drums,
Yeah, right,
Intruder, Peter Gabriel drums.
right, right.
But some artists in the 80s, and you can figure it out on your own,
Mhm.
but some of those things just don't add up well. Thank
Yeah,
God, other than give the people what they want, and I'm just not happy with that mix. And there is a lot of drum there, but it's just a little bit too hot for me. This record, State of Confusion, I have no issues with the production of it at all. I think production wise, I think it's great,
hmm.
you know?
Now, did I mention earlier that Wayne Newton released
Hmm.
a disco version of Jingle Bells called Disco Bells?
Hmm.
I just want to throw that in again, just in
Yeah.
case. Go ahead.
Yeah. Hmm. Anyway, so yeah, not one of my favorite Kinks records, but There's better. And the one I'm going to talk about, we're going to bring up now, we're going to talk about the next album, the final Arista album, Word of Mouth, which, if you go over the internet, if you look up some old reviews, some people think that this album's not so hot. I disagree. The Rolling Stone, because we're going to throw Rolling Stone out there again. Rolling Stone record, it was mixed. What they cited was the brothers' ability to weather personal changes, but criticizing the album for not always meeting the band's high standards. Now, when I listen to this record, I hear the opposite. I hear high standards, I hear good production, and I hear great songs. I don't know how you hear about it, but I don't. What are they talking about? This should be a contractual album, their final album. The Ray and Dave are putting 100% into this record. It starts off with the song "Do It Again,"
Now,
which
is that
one of my favorite Kink songs of all times.
Answer me this. Answer me this. Answer me this. Is that opening chord the same chord as Hard Day's Night?
If like a suspended ninth,
because it's like a jing, but then it doesn't go into like this upbeat thing or whatever. But it sounds like it might be the same chord as Hard Day's Night.
You just did the chord right there.
Yeah, and maybe they did it personally, purposely.
There was another review that I saw in All Music, and I just have to bring it up. They were talking about it. They gave it a lukewarm review. They thought it was a bit too processed and compressed and glossy. I don't know what record these critics are listening to, but this is not the record that I'm listening to.
I'm thinking they were talking about the Apollonia 6 album.
I think.
And not this is my favorite Arista period album. By far.
This is up there.
This is number one for me.
This is number two.
You said number two. I love this album. I saw him on this tour. Unfortunately, ironically, I brought up Apollonia 6.
That kind of ruined the whole mood.
Yeah, I know. But ironically, I brought it up because when I saw the Kinks, they even made a mention of this from the stage because they blocked off half of the little arena area that we saw them in, which is a pretty sizable place. They blocked off half of it and reassigned seats because only half the place was sold out because Prince was playing the same night just miles from, where we were seeing the Kinks. So everybody was, hundreds of thousands of people were going to see Prince because Prince was at the height of his career.
I can see that. Love Prince. Don't get me wrong. I love Prince.
I'll tell you, Prince is a master. Mm-hmm. I'm not knocking him, but I'm just saying that he was popular. That's where everybody was.
Sure.
So if people had choice, now I was lucky enough to see him on this tour. This is my favorite Kinks album in their career. Again, I belong onto the Contrarians Junior channel, and I would say that this contains Dave Davies' greatest song, called "Living on a Thin Line."
I love that song.
In fact, that song is probably
It might be one of his greatest songs.
I think it's his greatest song. I'm not knocking again. Grant, you and I are always going, we're not knocking the other ones because we know how the internet works. If you say like, oh, my favorite Beatles, Paul, then people are going to go, oh, you think John sucks? Well, you're stupid. It's like, no, I didn't say that. I said, I prefer Paul.
But I also like Do It Again.
Yes. But what I'm saying is that Living on a Thin Line, one of my absolute favorite, I think my favorite Dave Davies song. It's in my top 5 favorite Kinks songs. It's right up there in my opinion.
Oh, it's a classic.
Yeah. I mean, when I play it now, it still sounds amazing. And it's been 40 years since this album came out. Right. 40 years.
Yeah, you're old.
Damn you all to hell. No, that was the Planet of the Apes. But this album is it's almost autobiographical, if not completely autobiographical. I think some of the songs he was using for a short film or a film that he had made called Return to Waterloo. Ray is who I'm talking about. But I think this album is solid. This album, it's got the stadium feel, but it's got the more intimate feel. It's got the then modern feel. I mean, this was an album filled with great songs that should have appealed to a lot more people than just the FM people. Now, by this time, I don't remember hearing a lot of this stuff on the radio, but I did hear "Do It Again," and I also heard
Again.
"Living on a Thin Line." Those seem to be the songs that radio picked up on. But the whole album, I think, is filled with great, great songs. But yeah, I have just a personal love for this album over everything else by the Kinks.
What did it get to? And then let me look. Canada, what did it get to in the States?
I don't think it went. I don't think it did well. I think it got into the 57.
It got
or something.
57.
Yeah.
So we've had a drop off. So you can see where their run had ended. Because,
Yeah.
Sleepwalker 21, Low Budget 11, Give the People What They Want 15, State of a Confusion 12.
Yeah.
What a great run. So, but I mean, a lot of bands don't even have a great run like that.
Yeah.
So this is wonderful for the Kinks. So this went up to 57. Even though we say that this didn't sell as well, don't look at it like this is a weak album by any means.
No.
I think it's a phenomenal. I think they just had their run.
I mean, look, more people watched Roseanne than watched Twin Peaks. Yet Twin Peaks is a much better program than Roseanne was. But Roseanne is what people wanted, not Twin Peaks.
Right.
And that's kind of what I'm thinking here. I mean, people prefer State of Confusion or Give the People What They Want, and they didn't prefer this. That doesn't make it better or worse. It just means that this little masterpiece was overlooked, like Twin Peaks was originally. Gotta throw David Lynch in there somewhere too. Flock of Seagulls, David Lynch, The Monkees, Wayne Newton.
Wayne Newton. You going to mention Andy Williams?
No, because that's going to be saved for our show where we spotlight the greatest punk rock superstars.
Okay, good. That's excellent. I figured that you were saving it for something.
Okay.
Well, anyway, so, I mentioned a lot of critics.
But Andy Williams is my favorite crooner.
Right.
No, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Also, now I'm thinking
No,
Andy.
I don't care. It's fine.
Is
We're almost
my happy heart you hear? Sing it loud and sing. Yeah, okay.
I wanted to say that, though, this record has
Thanks, my
synths on it.
Huckleberry friend. What was that?
This album, they've added synths to the mix. So it's a little bit more
Yeah.
modern sounding,
Yeah.
but I don't find it. If you're still looking for the Kinks, it still sounds like the Kinks, and I don't think because they have a little bit more synthesizer and more synth flourishes here and there, I don't think it distracts. Some people may find it distracting. I do not. I think the material's all great. I love this record. I think it's not my number one, but
Right.
it's my number two. So
He said number two.
I don't think I have anything else other to mention it. If you're,
This is just a great record.
Great
I mean,
record.
again, both of us have, Good Day is a great song. But both Grant and I we've both mentioned, in fact, I'm going to look at this compilation and I'm going to see the songs that we keep mentioning the most are Do It Again and Living on a Thin Line. If you haven't heard this record, I'd say listen to the whole record, but if you at least want to get a taste of it, go back and listen to those two songs. Let's see if those are on this. Well, Good Day's on this, which is from the album. Let me see here. I'm going through. God, I can't see.
Yeah, vision's a problem.
Yeah, Do It Again is there. And Living on a Thin Line. So if you buy this, you're going to get Living on a Thin Line, Good Day, and Do It Again. Or if you have this in your collection. I think this was a 2 LP set when it came out originally.
It was a 2 LP set.
Yeah. So
Now, I have a question. The compact disc.
yes, a
Is
compact
single
disc.
CD is
Yes.
the whole, is everything from the 2 record set on there.
How many songs are on the 2 record set? Father Christmas is on this too. Father
10,
Christmas.
15, 16, 17, 18, 19.
This has only 18.
We're missing a track. We're missing Celluloid Heroes live.
Which was live. Yeah, F that. Who cares about live?
Well,
But this does have the disco edit of I Wish I Could Fly Like Superman.
and it's got Father Christmas on it.
Yeah, I was just saying that. But you know what it doesn't
I don't
have?
listen to what you say.
You know what it doesn't have? It doesn't have
What'd you
Mr. Engineer.
It should.
Doesn't have that on there.
It should. But it's got a good selection, so you might want to check that out if you like this whole era,
Yeah.
if you don't know it. So anyway, well, how would you rank these records?
Word of mouth would be number one. Low budget would be number two. I'm thinking give the people number three, Misfit number four, Sleepwalker. Actually, number four will be a three-way tie
Well,
between.
you can't have a three-way tie.
I can have a three-way.
You can't. Three-way chili, maybe. Do
Then
they have Skyline chilies out there in California?
I don't think so. I've never
Oh,
heard.
you're missing something then.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I mean, all I can tell
You
you.
know what? You know what a three-way chili is?
No, I don't. But I can tell you right
Spaghetti?
now, it probably goes from gut to butt.
Whatever.
Okay.
The base is spaghetti,
Uh-huh.
and then there's chili, and then there's cheddar cheese. And then you can
Dude,
get a four-way, and you could get onions or beans in it.
I'm way into that whole idea.
It's phenomenal.
Why are you giving a thumbs down?
I didn't. It just reinterpreted it incorrectly. See, look,
There you go. Okay.
and then I can do that.
Yeah, I can't
If I
do
do
that.
this, look at this.
What if you do the middle finger?
Well, I could try it.
I'm
It
surprised
doesn't
just
do anything.
I'm surprised my face didn't show up on your screen.
This is new, though. It didn't look like this before. This is new.
Oh, the rain?
Well, we had rain, but not like the way it looks now.
Oh, okay.
They changed it. It's an update.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
No,
my
but-
number one.
Go
Did
ahead.
you rank them?
No.
Okay.
I said word of mouth, low budget.
Mhm.
In fact, it's a four-way tie. So, and viewers out there, you can put them in any order because I really like this catalog a lot.
I understand.
Yeah.
I would go low budget number one
Mm-hmm.
for obvious reasons. Word of mouth number two.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'd go Sleepwalker number three.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'd go Give the People What They Want number four, even though it's solid. The songs are there. Drums, little janky, but
Little hanky
or janky.
or hanky panky
What did Velma say? Janky.
or janky in your hanky. Oh, God.
Then I'd go Give the People What They Want.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to have to be honest. I'm going to go State of Confusion and then Misfits.
Okay.
Misfits is great, but there's something about the other material that I find maybe it harks back to the old days. I don't.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So we would want to hear your ranking below. Please leave your ranking. Let us know what you think about this catalog. And if you haven't heard it, go out and check it out.
And I would like to say that the two MCA albums that they put out, which was Think Visual and UK Jive, I thought those both continued this trajectory. They sort of dialed back the keyboards a little bit, but I thought these were very strong follow-ups to the Arista catalog. I was not a big fan of Phobia, but I need to go back and listen to that again. Phobia was the
Now,
album on Sony.
I think that this exercise was wonderful. Let us know in the comments, because I wouldn't mind going through the whole catalog. Let us know in the comments if you want us to look at the RCA stuff or the reprise stuff or the MCA stuff, you know? I mean, we could always talk about it. Who's
Yeah.
talking?
I just thought of this. It would be awesome if Wayne Newton recorded a disco version of Steam Engine 99.
I love that song.
Mr. Engineer.
Isn't that a great song, though?
Oh,
Don't you love it?
dude,
Isn't that like your part of your childhood when you hear that?
the minute you start talking about that song popped in my head. And not only am I thinking of just what a great song it is, I'm just picturing the visuals
Do you
during
remember the
Monkees
visual
episode.
part?
Oh,
Do you remember the Monkees visual?
yes.
They're on the train running
Yep.
around. I
Yep.
can't let it. I remember it. Like
It was a zany romp,
Mhm.
which was unusual for a Monkees episode.
So I do have a question. I know
Yeah.
we're on a tangent, but by that time, weren't they dissolved? Why would there be a video, or was it the footage from the original show there? And they
The footage
used-
from the original show. So what they would do is they would take like I'm a Believer off and add Steam Engine.
or
so
something
because-
off of changes or something.
Correct. Because what they were doing is they were being smart. They're saying, well, we want to continue promoting the Monkees, but they just released this new Changes album, or they just released this new this one. I mean, I think it would have been
that's why I know some of those songs from when you're a kid, because
yeah. Oh,
they're just,
totally.
it worked. It burned it into your brain.
Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't have an episode with D.W. Washburn. A hot bowl of soup is waiting. Hot bowl of soup and a
My cousin has that
shave.
single, or she had it with the picture sleeve.
Yeah,
She had all of them.
yeah.
Loved it. Loved it.
God,
I love it.
I
D.W.
love that
Washburn.
stuff. Oh my God,
I love
What
it. But
go
man,
back and listen to that song now. It's a freaking weird song for a top 40 guitar pop band to do.
Yeah, it doesn't.
They were
fit
just doing the
anything, but
craziest things.
yeah.
So
I'm not sure what I'm going to play. I'm going to play something. Okay, should have announced this in a couple weeks. Mr. Schnee will be back, and DC Toon Time,
mhm.
and we are going to start a new series. And I had an idea
Listening
for the
party.
second show, though. I had
Oh,
an idea
okay.
for the second show that when we have our thing, I will bring it up. But I think I have a second show idea.
Okay.
I want to throw that by you guys. I'm going to wait though.
Okay, I would like to officially announce my retirement from this series.
No,
No, I'm
you're
kidding.
in it.
Okay.
Who's talking this stuff? Nobody. Someone
Nobody.
needs to talk about it, and we're going to talk about it. But anyway,
On my
we're gonna
channel,
start-
I just did a Big Audio Dynamite
that's too new.
series over. What?
That's too new.
No, I'm saying nobody's talking about this.
No one talks about Big Audio Dynamite now.
Yeah, exactly. Boing.
Well, anyway, so we're
I
going to
don't
do a
like
listening
music.
party to start off the series, and I'm not sure where the series is going to go.
Uh-huh.
But we're starting off with a listening party in a couple weeks. We're going to do 2 hours of bubblegum and sunshine pop. And I was just going to say, I'm going to pick a track off of Changes to play. So
Okay.
I'm not sure if I'm going to go I Love You Better. Oh my. I got to pick something off of Changes.
Oh, my.
Because no one really, come on. Who's playing that? And it's very bubblegum, I would say. Is
Actually,
Oh My, we could play
no, Oh My My is not bubblegum compared to Steam Engine. You go back and you put that in the bubblegum machine, and it's going to give you the biggest, most wonderful, beautiful rainbow flavor you've ever tasted.
Jesus. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's where we should end the show.
Okay, well, tell them the name of the show.
Oh, the series?
Yeah.
It's Sunshine Bubblegum Express.
Yes. And we will be tackling Sunshine, bubblegum, and Sunshine Pop. Some people get the two confused. It's easy to do that, but it's just warm and wonderful. And I'm known by some people in the VC as the guy who likes to walk on the sunny side of the street. So it touches my heart, and it just makes it explode with delight. So this is, and you'll hear a lot of the stuff on my Ski Lodge show as well.
Right. That's on Tuesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Yes.
Right. Every Tuesday.
Except no more in 2024. It's coming back in 2025.
Yeah, I'm wondering why you're taking. Well, I guess it's Christmas, isn't it?
Yeah, because the 24th is Christmas Eve. Can't do it there. Everyone's going to be hanging out with. I would rather have people hang out with
Not
their
me.
families.
I'm going to be here.
Well, then mean you're going to do a Zoom.
All right.
We'll talk about Andy Williams,
All right.
my Huckleberry friend. It's the second time I used that joke.
I use it all the time. So anyway, there you go. Check out this is what a rambling show, ladies and gentlemen. Well, the Warehouse, that's how it is. It's like hanging
Exactly.
out by the water cooler
Yeah, exactly.
in the staff lounge, talking music.
Yeah, well, it's like you hanging out at the staff lounge, talking with that guy that nobody else will talk with.
Yeah, I don't know who you are. Anyway, I do want to thank Mr. Schnee for coming on tonight. It's always been a pleasure to talk music. Last time you'll see him. DC and I will do the Bubblegum show. But anyway, we will be back. We have a whole bunch of stuff planned. So please subscribe. Go check out Steve's channel if you haven't subscribed. Give him some subscribers. Get him up to, I don't know where you're over 3,000. Get him up to 4,000.
Yeah, let's get to 4,000. And then I'll stop singing. Moon River.
Meanwhile, please
wider than a
subscribe to the
mile.
Warehouse because I'm just shy.
Blessing you in style
I'm about
someday.
I am about 90 subs away from 7,000. So if you could please subscribe to hit me to that magic number, I appreciate it. And subscribe to Schnee's channel. Get him
me too. Me too. Yeah.
3,500 maybe.
Yeah.
All right, Steve, I will be in contact. I'm going to get this right up because, God, this is great content. We need to get the Kinks out there. So
let's go out with a song. Mr. Engineer.
There you go. All right, we'll see everybody. Keep it clean and wrap the rascal.
What the hell's that mean?
You knew what that meant.
Oh my